This is a video explaining a little bit of the training that I undergo in order to complete the winter ultra marathon that I'm running now on the 5th of January. Very quick background. I was born in a very hot country. I was born in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Most of my life as a young teenager, as a child, I spent going to the beach, living that lifestyle of heat all the time. It's something I'm very comfortable with. When I was 15 years old, after living in different countries, my family ended up in the UK, and that's when I began to encounter real cold. I'd been to cold before, but it was always temporary, and I was always well dressed up. When I began to live in the UK, that's when I had many experiences of being underprepared. When I was going to school then as a teenager here, I'd see the sun shining and I'd underdress, and then on the way to school, by then it was too late, it was like way too cold, and I'd have to be freezing all day. There was this one experience I had once where I took a bus and I had to do like an art project, and I went to go to the beach and explore something to do with making art on the beach and everything. Long story short, I missed the bus. I didn't have enough money with me. This was like before mobile phones were widespread, and I think I ran out of battery or something actually, and I nearly died of cold. It was like a horrific experience. So fast forward many years now, almost 15 years, and I'm now practicing cold water therapy. So what brings this Brazilian guy who enjoys a hot climate, who's used to it, to then embrace the cold in this way? And the main reason why I do this is actually the fact that cold water therapy is something very beneficial for the body. In the field of nutrition now in the world, there's a lot of developments, there's a lot of information coming out, there's a lot of sense being made, especially because the internet is so available that people with different bits of information are putting it online, and we are doing the research ourselves. Nutrition is a topic that is not even taught in medical schools in America. For a medical training degree, which usually takes between 6 and 7 years in UK or America, they literally do 1 or 2 classes. It's something like 6 hours in 6 years of training. So nutrition is not something widely understood even by doctors. So there are those out there that are bridging pieces of information together. And now we can look into the scientific breakthrough that somebody like Wim Hof has done for the world, where he has found through cold water therapy, through just cold therapy really, the way to gain access of what's called the autonomic nervous system, or the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the deepest part of the nervous system to do with fighting diseases, fighting the malfunctioning of the body. So when the body is going through really tough, whether it's diseases or whatever it is, the autonomic nervous system is what kicks in to then rescue the body. And when you go through the challenge called the ice bath challenge, that part of the nervous system is what gets activated. It's such a shock to the body that the body then responds with its own emergency response, which is the autonomic nervous system. And an amazing experience I had, and those that surrender to the process experience that. In the ice bath challenge that I did about a year and a half, 2 years ago in Bali with a Wim Hof trained mentor, teacher, I got to go through the 2 minutes of freezing cold water with the ice, and I allowed myself to accept that situation and to allow the body. So my mind that was fighting the cold, which was extreme cold, I gave up that kind of mind control and allowed the body to take over and magically the body began to get hot. Literally the body gets hot. The autonomic nervous system will kick in this heat because it's then protecting the body from death, because the body then engages on a process of death as you put yourself in the cold. So I have this ultra marathon that I'm running now on the 5th of January, and it's gonna be cold conditions. It's likely to be on snow, and there's nothing more challenging, which is something I'm not even experienced with, but there's nothing more challenging than running like a long distance. A marathon is 42K. This is an ultra marathon, which is 50K. So it's 31 miles of continuous running. And the body, of course, is sweating like crazy. It's releasing water, releasing nutrients, releasing so much, because the body is going through such a long period of sustained fitness, sustained exercise. And with the snow outside, with the cold outside, then it makes the situation even harder for the body to deal with, because then you're getting colder because you have like a layer of water with you. So because of that situation, because of the conditions of this ultra marathon, it's an unusual ultra marathon, which is going to be at the top of the mountain. I think it's the second highest mountain range in the UK. It is a place where the elite forces of the UK, the SAS, they are the Navy SEALs of the British Army. That's where they train. And in fact, they have the test race for the Army cadets, for the Army personnel that wants to become SAS in the same week as the Blade Runner ultra marathon that I'll be doing. And so I want to be prepared. So by doing the cold water training, I'm preparing myself for this race. The more that I acclimatize to coldness in my body, in the nervous system, the more that I will be able to have a positive mindset, a strong mindset in the race. So yes, it is uncomfortable, and right behind me is freezing cold water. The temperature outside is about 5 degrees Celsius. So it could be colder, it could be snowy conditions, but it's still cold. It is very dark right now. It's just past solstice, darkest part of the year. It is one of the coldest spots as well. It's winter time now. It's been cold for many weeks now, and this water, therefore, it's gonna be very cold. So it's not pleasant, but there is a process where the body then gets used to it and gets somewhat hot. In the ice bath challenge, then the real challenge around the world, the Wim Hof method brings you to do the challenge well, and everybody then is required to stay for 2 minutes under the ice. But the real challenge really is to get used to the cold, to accept it to the point where you don't want to leave, or you don't need to leave. Because what happens is it's so unpleasant that to most people that the first reaction is I want it out, I don't want it, I don't like it, and they go into this mental battle. Now, the Ice Bath Challenge really is a process of getting to the point where you don't have to leave. So you kind of acclimatize it in your own mind. And that's what I always look for. Some people just do it they put themselves through the challenge of the 2 minutes, but it's not about the 2 minutes. It's about getting your mind comfortable. So this is very important, because what you want to be doing in this challenge is you want to go through the challenge itself, which is not a time, it's your state of mind. It's how you relate to it. And your state of mind directly impacts how your body reacts to it. So you can do 2 minutes, you can do 4 minutes, but if your mind is fighting the whole time, then that's not healthy. The healthy process is to get the body used to the cold. And when that happens, then you are allowing the body has its own recovery process with the cold as well. So it's not just the immediate cold, but overall the body dealing with cold on a regular basis. So it is understood scientifically that the body then begins to form an insulation layer inside you, which is defined as the brown fat. So you want to be doing this regularly, and you want to be getting the brown fat in the body so the body gets stronger. I like this idea because, perhaps I imagine I have this Brazilian genetics. It's the epigenetic of the comfort of the heat. And so I like the idea that inside me there is this layer being built to deal with the cold, because I don't like the cold. That's why I started with the story of being Brazilian. No Brazilians like cold water. But here I am in Europe, and here I am dealing with it. So I now push my mind to not only accept the cold, but to embrace the cold. So I have to reframe it actually. It's not that I don't like it. I do like it now. There's a part of me that dislikes the experience when it happens. And even right now, I'm kind of shaking because it's cold outside. And I also practice not putting too much heat in my house to just acclimatize overall all the time. So there's a part of me that dislikes it, but there is a big part of me that sees such benefit. Usually, immediately after, I feel so strong. And in the remainder of the day, I feel really prepared for the day. So some of the specific, observable, powerful effects of practicing this regularly are things like the elevation of one's mood. When you practice this regularly, perhaps on a daily basis, or every other day, you begin to notice that you get this inner joy, this well-being. Your emotions are balanced. You actually release a lot of negative emotion, but that's another topic. You rebalance your emotions, and this has a huge effect in one's life. Think about the sort of perhaps business projects you have that require you to have good emotion. Any position of leadership requires balanced emotion. So whatever you're doing, and you need to have that kind of leadership, that drive, that power, it empowers you there. If you're working out, or just bad nutrition in general that causes inflammation of the body. So for bodybuilders, or even for runners, if you use your muscles too much, then you can rupture your muscles. So bodybuilders are always rupturing the muscle for the muscle to get bigger. That's how the muscle gets bigger. That creates heat because the body is building itself again. So when you do the cold water practice, it basically clears the inflammation. Inflame, like flame. There's heat inside your body because the body is building itself up. So it reduces inflammation, it speeds up the healing process of the body, whether it's because of you doing bodybuilding or long distance running. It heals the body back into harmony faster. So this is known as a biohack. You're biologically hacking, you're going straight through the source to get the results that you want. So it has this effect. Cold water therapy is biohacking for fitness development. We now understand, again, the point I made on nutritional science, that the gut and the brain are completely interlinked into one nervous system. So we understand that there are specific nerves that connect between these two brains. You look at the belly button, which is where we begin to grow from being babies, and the first things that are being grown is not this brain. The heart and the gut are built before this brain are built in our genetic development. So you got to understand, this is the first brain, is actually the gut. And there's a lot of new science explaining how this literally is a brain. Your mood regulation is basically in the gut. So if you're eating bad food, it creates bad emotional and bad moods for yourself, because it's the gut that is the brain of that kind of part of the self, the emotional side of the self. And they interlink, they interact. So when you have a healthy gut, you have healthier thoughts as well. So this science exists. And so when you do the cold water practice, you are actually clearing a lot of the substance that sits in the gut or even in the colon. And something else that is another topic, is to intermix cold water with heat. So sometimes I do this cold water and then I go into hot shower, or saunas are ideal practice, because what you're doing is you're expanding, contracting the organs, you're expanding, contracting the veins throughout the body. All the in fact, every part of the body is expanding, contracting, because the body is filled with water. So the cells also expand and contract. So when you change the temperature of the body, you do an expansion and a contraction, and you're kind of doing a massage, a gigantic inner massage on the body. So this then creates the kind of purging. When you wring the t-shirt full of water or the towel, and you wring it out and the water comes out. So when you do that, the cold contracts, the heat expands. So when you do this sort of massage in the body, then what it does is it releases old stuff, whether it's toxins or which we have a lot, whether it's metals that get stuck in the body when we breathe the carburetor, the smoke from cars, we used to breathe a lot of lead, these or other heavy metals from bad cooking practices, a lot of the chemicals found in food, all this stuff gets stuck in the gut and in the colon. Even parasites arrive out of bad nutrition like this. So all this stuff there, and the parasites, even the chemicals, like I'm saying, they get squeezed out of your body, and then the lymphatic drainage system, the lymphatic system, then excretes it out. So the skin is a whole organ, as well as here and wherever the lymph nodes are. It releases, that's where it releases the toxins out of your body. That's why it's important to run, to do exercise, not so much for muscles. It's more like the heat that you create through exercise gets the lymphatic system to get the toxins out of your body, to get the old. It's not even just toxins, also the wastage, because the cells are always dying and reborn. In fact, we have something like 7 trillion cells at any given moment, and however the number of cells, every 7 years of our lives, all the cells in our body are new. So of course they die over time in different parts of the body, but there's a 7-year cycle where whatever remaining cell there was has died. So the body is always renewing itself. Cells die and others are made and reproduced all the time. So even that natural decay of the body needs to be expelled out of the body. That's the job of the lymphatic system. And so when you practice cold and heat water practice, you're getting the lymphatic system to be working really well. And you look at other cultures, not so much the Western cultures, but the tribal cultures around the world, they don't necessarily know the science as such, and we know the science because internet can allow us to bridge pieces of knowledge, but other cultures have known about the positive effect of heat and cold. The northern races, the Scandinavians, they know that very well. They created the saunas. So, and they also go through hot and cold as well. It's not random stuff. They are aware of their bodies. You see hot practices even throughout the other cultures as well. The Romans built, in their settlements, they had bath houses. It was very popular. Even in Turkey, for example, the bath houses are very famous. The Native American Indians, they do the practice inside a teepee. They created these teepees that are insulated, and so you go in and you experience extreme heat, and that of course has an amazing effect of purging everything out as well. So a lot of coaches have this cold and heat thing, which is related with the lymphatic system and lymphatic drainage of the waste of the body. Imagine this in our societies, in our cities. If we don't have bin men, it will clog up. So a lot of issues, hormonal issues with weight, it's actually just the fact that, and usually those people don't exercise. It's not about the exercise, it's actually about the lymphatic system working. A lot of people don't understand this. So that's one of the many things that cold water practices does for you. And so, like I'm saying, mood, the emotions, the lymphatic system. In the lymphatic system then makes your body feel really vital, really strong. You have more energy. Same thing goes for creativity and intelligence, because you get less foggy brain. Another issue is our computers, even this apparatus here, where we have the electricity going through the lenses, TV screens, computer screens. They all operate through this medium. They're actually these crystals, where light is shown through the crystal, and it travels right in through a cornea, and our cornea then makes sense of the image, and our brain maps it out. So that's the actual science of the television, the vision that is teletransmitted, you see. Again, this is kind of knowledge that people are not clear on. So computers, television, the screen on mobile phones, they're actually tiny microcrystals that light is emitted. Because if you think to yourself, how do we get image out of a phone or out of the TV? How does that work? It actually works through the electric channels, and the electric channels are then multiplied through the many crystals at different frequencies. But what's happening through the screen is the crystals then modulate the kind of color scheme and everything. So then that image is sent out. So from it being sent out, of course, it travels through, enters our eyes. That's how we see reality, actually. That's how we see light. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing gradation of light. So you're actually having an electrical impulse going from the screen into our brain. So the more that we use this technology, like as you understand, we have to charge it through electricity. And that imbalances the body's own harmonious electromagnetic balance. If we're too electric in the electromagnetism of the body, then it means we are too imbalanced, because even our cells have a kind of harmony based, they operate harmoniously based on how much electricity and magnetism is being passed through them. So if we have too much electricity, then the body goes into a kind of acidic reaction. It destroys the body, you see? So again, this is a piece of information that a lot of people don't understand. So that's very important for you to know. With modernity, with all these apparatuses, cold water therapy undoes the harm that it does on the body. So a lot of the foggy brain experience when we're tired, it's actually because of spending too much time in front of the computer, in front of these screens. And I'll tell you as well, if you use a computer for too long, if you've had a computer for more than, 3 to 5 years, I reckon, then the crystals, the screen itself begins to decay. So then you get direct charges of electricity towards you. And that's very unhealthy for the body. So the cold water therapy reintegrates, rebalances it out, the electric magnetic aspect, because water that comes from nature, especially water that comes from nature, they are naturally charged with the natural frequency of electric magnetic energy found in nature. Whereas man-made technology, it's out of balance. So it's important for the body to come back to this balance. Otherwise we have foggy brain, we have lack of creativity, we have sleeping problems. If you have the tendency to wake up, you're looking at the screen. You go to sleep, you're looking at the screen. If you wonder why you don't sleep very well, it's because of the screen. It's because of over-electrifying the body. Electricity is good for the body, but too much is harmful. Too much of anything that is out of the norm of nature is harmful for the body. So the cold water practice is always there for us to support our health. So these are some of the points, the health points that I could make. Now I'm just going to demonstrate then how the experience goes for me with the cold. It's still cold, no matter what I do, it's still going to be cold. There's no heating in this room, and it's not going to be pleasant. But I embrace it, and I usually do it for just 2 minutes, and I try and just accept. So I'm just gonna do it for about 2 minutes, and I'm just gonna show you guys. Now, another thing is this. Wim Hof training, they get you to do a lot of breathing. So the breathing then releases a lot of stress in the body, and it can even then liberate what's called the pineal gland, which sits right about the middle of the brain. If you were to dissect a line from the top and from the middle here, there's a pineal gland. The pineal gland releases a lot of, how can I put it? When the pineal gland is decalcified, then we have a greater sensitivity with the world. So that's when we can see colors better. That's when we can feel with our senses. When we lose our sense of smell, when we lose like a sense of feeling beauty in the world, that's all related with the pineal gland. The cold water, of course, helps with that. The Wim Hof method, however, the breathing is supposed to then generate a kind of clarity in the body for the pineal gland to be liberated, so we can become more aware beings, because awareness, of course, is related to the pineal gland. So when we have more awareness, we feel less pain, or we feel less limited by our body. And this is why it's so effective to do breathing. And breath work is a very important modality in the planet right now. Again, there's a lot of science around that. Now, I am not officially trained in the breath work of Wim Hof, but what I do is I just sit back, almost like through a meditative process, which is the same thing. Breathing and meditation are very linked. So I just go and breathe deeper, and when my mind begins to go wild with get me out of here thoughts, I just allow myself to sink inside myself. So I'm a meditator, I have experience with this. If you're not, then I recommend do the Wim Hof breathing, and so that you can get used to how the breath can relax you. Because especially in the beginning, if you don't have a guide, or if you are not naturally drawn to it and you want to start this in your own home, then I recommend doing the breathing work of Wim Hof. So I don't particularly need it for this kind of level. Perhaps for the ice bath, that is a very important process. But this is not an ice bath. This is a very cold bath. The water is probably now around 7 degrees. So this is about what I can share with you guys. It's been a long introduction, but a lot of important information was shared, and I thought it was important to share. And just a little final background on my experience with all this. Even before I did the ice bath challenge in Bali, I spent many years going to hot steam saunas in Bali, where I lived for 6 years, and I would meditate until I'd almost pass out, and I'd almost have visions, psychedelic visions, just staying in the heat, because that's what I was doing for my body. And after then, the whole thing began for me. I would get into such a strong state of heat inside the steam saunas that I went to, that I would begin to experiment with going to a cold shower straight after, or going to a pool of water. And then I noticed then that the cold water had an effect on me. And then there was one of the sauna, one of the sort of spas in Bali that I used to go to, had a extreme cold water pool, which are now much more and more very common. And it was about 2 degrees. It was just before freezing sort of temperature, so it was extremely cold. And that's when I began doing then steam sauna to cold practices. And then later on, when the Wim Hof trainer came around, It was a great pleasure. I already had enough experience with those things. I'd say about 3 to 4 years. So for me now to do this without a Wim Hof training, and this is the point, it comes from having practices for years. So if you're new to cold water, don't allow yourself to get discouraged. Go one step at a time. I say this because even 2 minutes can seem like a lot, especially if you don't have the context. My context was built over many years, so I don't expect you to just begin to embrace and do everything in such a short space of time. Even just a dip in cold water can be great, can be an achievement. If it's the first time you're ever doing this and you're doing by yourself and you don't have any knowledge, any experience, just dip, literally put your whole body under and get out, have a hot shower. That's an achievement. And what you want to do is over time, go deeper and deeper until you learn with information. Use the internet, do research, talk to other people, go on the Facebook groups, ask around, and more than anything, go into action and practice. If you can go to steam hot sauna, great. There are other, that's hot water practice, that's a hot practice. If you want to stick to the cold, stick to the cold. Go to the many centers that are now doing cold water therapy around the world. They also have these ones where you stand in a kind of tube and you open a door and then they close the door around you, just stand up for 2 minutes and it gets almost like crazy cold. This cold, I forget the name of that one. So that could be one to begin with. It's not that challenging, that one. It is cold therapy, I forget the name. It's a proper machine. So you could do that too. But like I was saying, it just takes time, okay? It's not something that happens overnight. And you gotta stay with it as well, Whenever I drop my practice, which happens, because sometimes you get sick of it, of being cold a lot. And so when I come back, there's always like a readjustment, you see? But then eventually the mind begins to get strong again. So in the sense of getting used to the cold. Another thing is there's always resistance. Like right now, throughout this whole half an hour of talking, there's a part of my mind going, don't go. There is a part of my mind still that always says, don't put me there, So that is the part of your mind that you have to fight through action. And action is number one, not knowledge. Knowledge comes from action. Action and then hopefully self-awareness, which is surrender. That's where the breath comes in, quite important. So enough talking, there's been a lot of information and I'm just gonna go and show you the process. Final thing I'll say, whatever reaction you want to have, if you scream out, if you're a man and you're a macho man, you're a muscle guy, you're a fighter, and you scream out like a girl, it's fine. Just whatever noises you need to make, it's fine. Same with girls, whatever noise, if you like get all whatever, however you react is fine. Remember to try and relax. Remember to try and accept. Remember to breathe. Remember to just try and sit into your mind. That's like a meditational practice. But the idea is acceptance. And the more that you accept, the less hard it gets. Another way of saying is the easier it gets. I want to say the easier it gets, but it's not always easy. It depends on who you are. But the less hard it gets, the more that you accept, basically. And accept is a surrender. You can't force acceptance. You have to let go of fighting the experience. So I hope that makes sense again. Very important point. Let go of fighting the experience. You can't force acceptance. Acceptance is an undoing. Acceptance is an undoing of the fighting. You see? That's when the cold, when you really nail that, the acceptance, which is when you let go of fighting, that is when the cold becomes your friend. The cold becomes your hard teacher. So I've talked enough. There's no more that I feel I can share or that is valuable to share at this stage, especially for a beginner. And so time to just do it. I'm wearing my underwear, by the way, because there's no point in me being naked. But we're gonna go for 2 minutes. I'm just gonna demonstrate. You see, I'm not doing any breathing work beforehand. I'm just gonna accept my mind as it is. I'm not gonna, it's important for me because I believe if you do a little bit of breathing, it's a little bit of a cheating because it is masking from yourself your state of mind. So if I was to do a little bit of breathing to prepare, it's already like a little change to my state of mind. Whereas for me, my practice personally is just to always get the cold to reflect how peaceful or not I am. And most of the time it shows, all the time it shows my level of inner peace, my moods, everything. So time to go into the cold. So we're gonna do 2 minutes and I'll go in. So I usually put my hand around my heart. It really helps for some reason. Some people do that too. I try and submerge my whole body. One minute. Now I'm releasing the pain, accepting it. The body has its own intelligence. The body initially goes, get me out of here. But then you just have to surrender. Then the cold takes over. And that's when you kind of get hot. That's when you stop fighting. So 2 minutes has passed. Two minutes have passed. And I'm just gonna continue. Just gonna soak myself. So my legs are taking in the heat, the cold right now. I continue to surrender my body to the cold, to my feet. So because 2 minutes is not a massive challenge for me, and I don't like to waste too much water, I usually have a little shower. So when we do this with ice cold water, when the water is full of ice, then the whole skin gets super red and super hot. In fact, because it's so cold, my body is hot. I feel it. It's like rushes, flushes of heat. It's an amazing thing. But you can only get that when you go to real cold. When you go real cold, like ice cold, I mean it's real cold now, but when you go to the ice cold level, it's so intense, the cold is so intense that when you surrender the body, allow the body to have the autonomic nervous system kick in, then you'll see, as far as you submerge your body gets red, your skin gets red, because what it does is the body then flushes the nervous, all the nerves, the nervous system with heat and blood, so that the capillaries expanded and blood rushes everywhere, and that's part of the reason of why the body gets hot. I didn't plan on having the soap on this session, to be honest, but I might as well, because I want to show you guys that when you get used to the cold, the point of the challenge, of the cold water challenge, and this is not a challenge, but if it's a challenge for you, the point of it is to get comfortable with the cold. The point of it is to get comfortable. The point is not to simply endure. The point is to accept. And because I'm looking to race in a tough snow conditions type race, I need to be comfortable with the cold. And so if you want to push things, you want to soap yourself, and then it's like a challenge number 2, which is to go back in the cold. And this time, again, you can use the breathing however, but it's going cold again. So the second time is not pleasant, but it's not about the pleasure, it's about transcending your personal limitations. It's amazing to learn how extreme cold brings heat. The cold and the heat live next to each other. This is a big lesson. It's a big lesson for life. Pain and pleasure are connected. That's a whole other topic. But there it is. And then you get power. Feel so strong. Because you get vital. You get vital out of this practice. So there it is, guys. Okay. You can probably see my skin is a bit darker. I don't know if you can see it or not. My skin maybe a little bit darker. Because of the cold. So this is a basic introduction, cold water therapy. So good. You gotta get into it, so good. See see you guys in another vlog then. Hope it's being informational.